Hi, I'm Colm Feore, and I'm going to be talking about Storm of the Century with Darnell in a few moments. Why don't you join us? Born in sin? Come on in.
Thank you for that lovely intro, Mr. Feore. As you just heard him say, I'm Darnell Weeks. I'm here to talk about a film called Storm of the Century. It's a film that's near and dear to my heart. I saw it for the first time in the spring of 2002, and I was intrigued immediately. One of the things that I found to be most intriguing about the film is its bizarre nature, starting with the antagonist, André Linoge, and his ambiguous phrases such as, "Give me what I want and I'll go away." What exactly did he want? And why couldn't he simply take it, as you heard them ask him in the movie? We will also discuss that in the interview. Born in sin? Come on in. What exactly did that mean? And how did he seem to know the townspeople's darkest secrets? Join us as we discuss these things. Another thing that I found to be very intriguing about this movie is that we never really knew why Andre was there. With Jason, you knew that he was there to seek revenge on the camp counselor that killed his mother. With Michael, he came back to Haddonfield to kill the other sister, at least in the original timeline. And Freddy Krueger was seeking revenge on the children of the townspeople who burned them alive. So you knew why they were there. And you knew their objective, even if you didn't quite understand the motive. But with André Linoge, you didn't exactly know why he was there. He was just there. Everyone, this is the Myers fan, and I'm back with a very special guest. He is the star of Stephen King's Storm of the Century. Please welcome Colin Feore. Mr. Feore, how are you? It's such a pleasure to meet you.
Very well, Darnell. Pleasure to meet you too.
Oh my goodness, I love the film. Andre Linoge is just such a great villain. I love that line, "Born in sin, come on in." I have to ask you, what exactly does that line mean? Do you know?
Well, it's biblical, a paraphrase of a biblical line. We are all guilty of original sin, and therefore, what is it? We're born sick and counseled to heal, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
very Christian message, and it gets people where they live.
Yeah. How did you get into acting? If anything, what inspired you to become an actor?
Well, Darnell, I started very early. I was acting in high school, and by the time I got to the end of high school, I wasn't particularly good at anything else. I applied to some universities, and they accepted me in a kind of, well, okay, if we have to sort of way. And I didn't have any real focus specifically that I was thinking of. I thought, I'd make a probably a pretty crappy English teacher at best. But at the same time, I applied to the National Theatre School here in Canada, Montreal, and I got in there. And I thought, well, why not just try this for a while? And after 3 years of that, it's a craft school essentially, and you learn how to build the house with nails and wood and hammers and such. And so I got a job almost immediately, and I haven't really looked back. I've been very, very lucky. But it was the thing I was most interested in, getting out of high school. And then it just kept going.
How did you land the role of Andre Linoge?
That's a very good question. I have no idea. I don't remember specifically auditioning for it at any length, but you know what the guy looks like, and I have a reasonably scary face, and it perhaps that's all it took. And also, I came from a theatrical background, which doesn't hurt when you're playing something as well literate as Stephen King can be. You know, it's he's an intelligent, articulate character. He's it doesn't hurt to have a little theatrical experience doing, you know, Shakespeare and Eugene O'Neill and stuff like that when you're looking at something as heightened as we
Yeah.
were on Storm. You know, it's got a poetry to it.
Yeah, I just thought it was a very bizarre film because it it had a bizarre music score, a very bizarre villain. I mean, he was just steeped in such mystery and ambiguity. You never really knew what he was. Was that the intention of the film?
Yeah, I think in this case, ambiguity is our friend. You know,
Yeah,
the more doubt you can sow, the more you trouble people. One of the things about him that was so much fun is that, you know, he just goes around revealing the town's secrets publicly, and
yeah,
he just drops little bits of "I know you" into his conversation, and it's unnerving, right? When
yeah,
you hold a mirror up to people and say, "You can't hide from me."
yeah,
I saw him as the devil's advocate, you know, and that there was always going to be a bit of evil, and it needed someone to speak for it, which is why he needed a new generation. You know, he was, I don't know, 1,000 years old, whatever it was, and he needed children. So, you know, that is a very useful costume, if you will, or thing to put on, that idea of you can't quite pin him down. They spent half the show trying to figure out what he is and who he is. And it's maddening that he never answers. He certainly never answers directly.
yeah. What was it like working with Tim Daly
Oh, they
as
were
Michael Anderson? What was that like?
It was just wonderful. Tim's a wonderful actor and a delightful guy. In fact, the entire company was extraordinary. You know, Stephen wrote this, I believe, you know, we shot his first draft. It was never a movie. It wasn't another novel. This was just a script for television, which he wanted to be, you know, like 6 hours long. And it gave him the opportunity to really develop all of those characters, the entire town. Everybody who appears has a beginning, middle, and an end. And that's so rare. And what happened was we were very lucky. Craig Baxley, who directed it, managed to get the best actors from America and Canada and put us all together. And turns out everybody was delightful. So it was a real load of fun to work on, even though, you know, obviously it was a horror film.
Yeah. What do you think separates Andre from uh, other villains, and do you feel that these qualities make him better, like Jason, Michael Myers, and Freddy Krueger? What do you think separates him from those guys?
I think he's more a mirror, you know, he's more trying to explore and expose people's weaknesses and vulnerabilities and, you know, the horror of who it is they are, and accepting responsibility for who they are and for their actions and choices. And that's, to me, that's a lot scarier than, you know, someone coming at you with a knife. As you may recall, most of Linoge's success in undoing and frightening people is the power of suggestion. You know,
Yeah,
he turns them against themselves and reveals their, you know, the horror of who they are. I remember Deborah Ferrantino playing Tim's wife
yeah,
and, mom. And we did, you may recall, there was a kind of a lottery at the end of the show
yeah,
where, you know, they have to choose. And because it was up to me, you know, I had a bag of stones, and
yeah,
through a certain amount of lighthearted but malicious trickery, I engineered it thus that in the rehearsal of that scene, Deborah would pick the stone that I wanted her to pick.
yeah.
I would leave no option but for her to pick that. And it involved Darnell. I'm not be coy with you here. I simply was holding the bag of stones. I had hidden the killer stone at the bottom, put it, in a grip underneath my thumb or finger, and then didn't release it until it was Deborah's turn to pick.
Yeah.
And of course, then she picked that stone, and the look on her face was priceless. And
now, is that why she said, "You tricked me"?
No.
Okay.
No, but maybe that's where I got the idea to do it, because there's certain things we can do as actors that we can surprise ourselves and then create spontaneity in front of the cameras. But usually we rehearse and we practice. We try to be as skillfully prepared as we can. But occasionally it's nice if a little bit of truth leaks in and we shock each other. And that was certainly fun. It was a very Linoge thing to do. And finally I admitted it to her later, so she didn't feel too freaked out. But it sent a chill.
I love the film so much. I can't say it enough. I think I saw it for the first time in 2002. And, my mom's fiance actually introduced me to the film. And when we got to the ending, and I found out what it was that you wanted, and that's my next question, by the way. But when I found out what you wanted, I was like, oh crap, I can't believe he wants a child. Like, how sick is that?
Wait a minute, Darnell, who doesn't? Who doesn't want a future? Who doesn't want to leave the legacy of who and what they are?
Well, right, but you don't steal somebody's child. That's just awful.
Good point, Darnell. But I didn't steal it. I asked them to give me one.
That's true.
Give me what I want, and I'll go away.
That's true. And that's my next question. Throughout the film, André Linoge continuously writes the cryptic phrase, "Give me what I want, and I'll go away." And later on, we find out that he actually wants one of the children of the townspeople. If you were one of the parents, what would you have done? Would you be so willing to give your child to a complete stranger to save everyone else?
Well, this is the moral dilemma that they all faced, and that, if I was in that situation, I would face. And I suspect I'd like to think that I'd stand up and fight till the last and say no, but I might just fold up like a cheap chair and say, well, on balance, you're doing a numbers game. We save this many and sacrifice this. It's a very Christian thing. We sacrifice one person on a cross, and that saves the rest of us.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, I have to be honest with you, though. If it were me, I think it would have turned out a little bit differently, because I'm not about to give you my child. I mean, I would tell the child, say, listen, come here. I want to talk to you for a second. Your daddy's got to die. You understand that, don't you?
But your new daddy is going to be very nice, and he's going to take you to San Francisco.
Right, but still, he's a demon. I mean, come on, this guy's horrible. He was a horrible person. Can you even call him a person?
Well, that Linoge is an anagram, right, of Legion.
Yeah,
I am Legion. So Stephen is riffing on this whole idea of the devil, and the devil's a fallen angel. This is all part of God's plan.
Mm-hmm.
And, depending on which tradition you like or believe in or are familiar with, this goes back since the dawn of time. We have impulses, both good and bad, altruistic and utterly selfish. And in order to live a good life, we try to find that balance and do the most good most of the time. But it's a challenge. And so guys like Stephen King come along to remind us of what a challenge is and what we face and what the questions really are.
Yeah. Now, on Wikipedia, it says that it was sort of not clear what Linoge was. Was he good or was he evil? I mean, how do you interpret that? I mean, was he good or evil?
Well, when you have to play these guys, inevitably, from my point of view, he was terrific. He's a, because for that moment and those purposes, he is me, and no one apart from maybe Snidely Whiplash or Doctor Evil gets up in the morning and looks in the mirror and says, "I am evil. I'm doing the best I can for
Yeah,
who I am." And so, no, his worldview is not evil. It's I will choose to behave in a way that exposes your evil to you, but I have a plan, I have an agenda, I have a future. And
yeah,
now that I have Alfie, my future is secure. But I think that Stephen's going farther, that the idea is that Linoge being legion, that is to say, there are many. Did you ever see, it was a wonderful Terry Gilliam film, Time Bandits?
no, I don't think I did see that.
You should have a look. You'd love it. But at the end of it, they're fighting evil, and they think they've won. But there's always a little bit of evil in the corner somewhere that you forget, miss, or don't sweep up. And
Yeah,
so, we're never going to be able to escape that. And we will always need to be reminded of our darkest selves. I mean, Shakespeare got it right. Hamlet talks about what is the theater for? Why do we go and listen to stories? And he says something along the lines of it's to hold the mirror up to nature and
yeah,
to show us ourselves. And that's what a Linoge character does. He says, "Look, this is you. I didn't do this. You'll think I'm evil because I'm going to put you in a difficult ethical, moral, and situation, and make you ask hard questions and make hard choices. But it's not my fault. This
well, I
is
mean, yeah, he did say that. He said the town's full of drug dealers and pedophiles, and
adulterers and
yeah, he named them all. But and he said something that I love. He said in so many words, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember the exact quote, but he basically said, Michael Anderson says to him, "You only see the bad, never the good." And then you come back and say, "Goodness is merely an illusion." I love that because it's so true. So many people will take the moral high ground with you and they think that they're so good and so moral, and they're really not. They're really not when you break it down because you talked about being Christian. If you go through the laws and the commandments, there are so many that people have broken. So they want to think that they're good, but in essence, André Linoge showed them that they're actually not.
look what
Uh,
happened last night. Last night, Warnock defeats Walker.
mhm.
The number of people supporting Walker from the Christian right was and is astounding, given Walker's sometimes unchristian behavior.
Mm.
And and lo and behold, that doesn't stop anybody who claims to be Christian from making an ethical and moral choice to ignore that. And
Yeah,
because what they want in the end is more important to them than the values and beliefs that they claim to espouse. And that's at
yeah,
least from an outsider's point of view. But on the face of it, it would seem to be essentially the same dilemma. What are you prepared to sacrifice for what it is you want?
that's true. And I think so many people want to claim to be good and I'm this and that, and you never know, they might be a drug dealer, whatever the case may be. Um and I like how he exposed all of that. He says to the kid, "Hey, what are you doing home from school? You're not supposed to be here." And he tells the kid, he says, something about no, it was Robbie Beals, the town manager.
Oh,
He says,
yeah.
yeah, he says, he does talk to the kid about being home from school, but he says to Robbie, he says, you let your mother die. Like, what kind of person is that? See,
Yeah, yeah.
I just love this movie. That's all. What you're hearing is enthusiasm. I love the movie so much.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that. I know you're not a video guy, but you can see me, right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, so in preparation for this, I forgot until about 2 minutes before I plugged the thing in that Craig Baxley and our producer had gifted me this thing that was way up on my shelves, which I just risked my life to climb. But you can see this, right?
The wolf came. Look at that. You know what?
I
I
forgot that
absolutely
this is
I
so
love
cool.
that.
We had a
I
few of them, and some of them were animatronic and could
Yeah.
move and do stuff. Some of them, unlike this one, which is a very heavy silver head, were
Yeah.
rubber, so that I could beat old women with them, which is handy.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
Those are great props.
That's great. So in the film, Andre implies that he was responsible for the lost colony of Roanoke. But what do you, Colm Feore, the actual person, what do you believe happened to the lost colony of Roanoke?
Oh, good Lord, I have no idea. I think and I think it's best to remain a mystery. Um,
Oh, come on,
Come on, terrifying. Are you kidding? Well,
give us something.
you think there's all kinds of possibilities, like a group dynamic that takes them off into kind of a mass suicide, a disappearance of sorts. They just float away like Atlantis, and they disappear beneath the waves. You know,
Yeah.
too scary to contemplate.
Yeah, that was one of the first ones that I wrote down. I said I've got to ask him this, because I wanted to know what the actual person thought about Roanoke, because that's one of my favorite mysteries. I'm into mysteries, unsolved
Hmm.
mysteries, and things like that. I'm glad you had the wolf cane right there. That is so awesome.
Just to protect me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Out of the entire cast, who did you enjoy working with the most and why? I hate to put you on the spot, but
Well, I'm going to be, very sort of even-handed about it. There's so many. They're so good. Jeff DeMunn, Casey
Uh-huh.
Shamashka, Tim, Deborah, Becky Ann Baker. I mean, there were so many people who are friends and colleagues of mine and have been for 40 years up here in Canada. But then, Kathleen Chalfont. I mean, there are some extraordinary players in this who've all had wonderful careers. And so one of the things that was so heartening about that cast was that when we all came together, it was like a company because we were all in a lot of the time, and there were big scenes, right? So they're like little one-act plays essentially
Mm-hmm.
that we had to do. And Craig Baxley very generously and kindly encouraged us to get together like that. And so it was a team effort on every level, and it was challenging to shoot because sometimes we were in bad weather, sometimes we were faking bad weather, and we all got to go to Maine, which was amazing. But it was a real company show, and so that collaborative part of it, and the friendly nature of that collaboration is, I think, very much visible in the film. You can tell that people liked each other and they liked working together. I mean, obviously they had to pretend to be family and townsfolk, having known each other for generations. But it was real easy to do with that group.
I
They're remarkable people.
I would love to tell you though that you did a good job eating the cookie when you had the cookie in your hand and you were getting arrested the way you were
Uh,
chewing that cookie. I said this man is just chewing the cookie so nonchalantly
yeah.
and he has just murdered somebody. I mean,
Yeah,
again,
as a lost leader. I mean, just to get things started, let's murder the old woman. Someone will be paying attention, and we'll see how this goes. And she's waiting for you in hell, Robbie, I think is the first thing I say to him.
yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that line. Now did he mean that? Does he really know the inner workings of hell, or was he just messing with him?
Hard to say. I like to think that he did, that, as the devil's advocate, he has an inside scoop on what's going on.
Yeah.
And And he has to, because he's, he exists in our world, but also on some other plane. There's no question. So he has to know a little bit about what the future holds.
He absolutely, along with the entire movie, he just scares me. And I told my mom's fiance, I said, when I meet him, I'm gonna tell him, I have to tell you to
This is
your
your
face,
fault.
you scare me. You really do. I just watched it the other night, and I'm looking around, looking behind me, and
It's funny you should say that, because when the script first came through the door here, and it was a big read, it was like 3 solid blocks of script. My my mother-in-law, now alas dead, was here with us, and we were upstairs bathing the children and tending to one thing or another, and she decided to stay downstairs. She said, "Can I read that?" I said, "Oh, sure." And we had this really horrible dishwasher that, when it started up, started making really unspeakable noises, because we were just too cheap to replace it. Didn't have the money. And so my mother-in-law, she gets through the first half of the first script, and she turns the page just when Linoge is about to do something horrible. And this stupid dishwasher damn near explodes. She
yeah.
flies up the stairs and races into our, and she's in a cold sweat. She said, "I'm sorry, I can't read any more of this. It suddenly scared me." And then the dishwasher went off, and I thought it was you, and it's the spooky thing, and it's the guy. No, I can't. And I think that's at the moment where I knew this was going to be a fun and hopefully successful show to watch, that people would actually be frightened. And one of the things I like about it, when I see bits of it again, and if it comes on TV, and indeed, Stephen King, God bless him, just came out recently saying it's one of his favorites.
Well, because it's the best.
Well, that's very kind of you to say, but
it really
it's his remarkable work. And as I say, this collaborative company, expertly directed by Craig Baxley and Dave Connell, shot it. So the cinematography is so cool. I mean, we got these beautiful, stormy, dark, threatening scenes. And, all I have to do, and as I said at the outset, Darnell, I have a reasonably scary face, and I'm a method actor, and my method is to go where the light is prettiest, or in this case, scariest. So, with my cheekbones and a dark cloud over my head and very little light, all I have to do is turn into the lens and look at you funny, and you're gonna feel weird. And so we use that to advantage.
Right now. I'm feeling weird right now because I'm scared you're gonna go and do the thing with, you remember the thing when you used to do with your teeth?
Yeah.
Yes. Please don't do that.
And then the eyes roll back in his head, and they're all black. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a darkness in his soul. There's no question.
I don't know. It's so great talking with you. I guess my final question would be, if you were asked, I know it's impossible, but if you were asked to do a follow-up film,
mm-hmm.
would you do it? And if so, what would the premise be?
The answer, of course, is yes. I'd be delighted to do a follow-up film. I'm an actor, and I'm always looking for work. On the other hand, it's also a fascinating character. I suspect that the most interesting premise, there's that wonderful scene at the end where Tim Daly's walking the streets of San Francisco, because he's tried to head as far west and as far away from the East Coast as he can. So he ends up in San Francisco, and he has that chance encounter on the street with me, essentially, but dressed up as a businessman and under a lot of special effects makeup, but walking with an older Alfie. And I think it might be interesting to see, what is that relationship? Is there now a training program that goes on for devil's advocates and devils? Is he tapped to be the next generation? And how does that work? And how do you practice that? Do I take him out on little test things where, I drop him into perhaps schools with kids his own age, where he starts doing my stuff and reveals them to them on the road to making them better or perhaps worse people? I don't know. I'm no writer, but that would be a good place to start, I think.
I would like to see, it actually makes perfect sense when you think about it, because you're older now, you look older, and remember, in the film you said that you were getting older. So, I mean, don't you think it would fit today? Or
absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. He's always dealing with time, and Stephen handles this. beautifully subtly. I mean, we have all the special effects makeup, but as he's revealed at the end, he's a very old man
Yeah,
in the hundreds of years old. It's biblical. It's
yeah,
Methuselah. And and that's what I think gives it its sort of subcutaneous scare. I mean, it gets to you in ways that you've known, you've heard these old stories, you've been to Bible school, you've read all. You see, somewhere in, I think there are creatures who were 900 years old, and they had 15 generations of children, and it all seems impossible, but it sort of explains our world, and so then to make that tangible and real, and you see this wizened creature with his, jowly, pointy fingernails, and he's still got his fresh silver cane, and off he goes with his cowl in the snow, holding Alfie's trepidatious hand.
yeah.
It works on levels that we don't have to think about. It short circuits our logic, and that's
But
where it gets us emotionally.
what was it about that particular kid that attracted Linoge to him? I mean, do you know, like, why Ralphie? Is there a reason for it?
Well, I don't. There has to be a kind of, overarching point to all of this, and I imagine that the characters, both Tim's character and Deborah's, they were leaders in the town, and they were,
Hmm.
they were seen to be and revealed to be good people, and yeah, until they get into a very difficult situation, and then they each reveal themselves differently.
Yeah,
And so I suspect that Stephen's saying, look, we want our audience is going to identify with the best people. They're going to think that they're the best people, and that, I'm Tim Daly when I watch this. I'm Deborah Ferrantino. And
I
very few people are going to think they're Colm Feore.
I think it was the perfect movie, especially for a person like me, because I'm into unsolved mysteries
Mm-hmm.
like Roanoke. I was obsessed with Roanoke around the time that I saw this film. So I thought it was perfect. He talks about the Bible. I'm into the Bible. So, it's really the perfect film. And I guess I will ask you this last thing. If the film were to be remade instead of being a sequel, uh, or if you had to choose somebody to portray Linoge, who would be the new André Linoge for a remake? Do you have somebody in mind? If it couldn't be you,
Well, and why couldn't it be me?
well, because it's a remake. They're remaking it.
And when you remake, you also have an opportunity to rethink. And I think with the wisdom and maturity of a certain distance and age and experience, I could bring even more to it than I did the first time.
That's true.
However, if you're determined to replace me, golly,
Which I'm not, because nobody can replace you, sir. But
no, it is, listen, there's a lot of great actors. There's a lot of just wonderful actors out there. I suspect that you want somebody not too well known.
yeah,
That's the advantage. I mean, I've been very fortunate as an actor. I've managed to stay under the radar and keep working for well over 40 years. And it gives you a kind of longevity, but it also gives you one of the most useful things is anonymity. I can
yeah,
keep turning up as something else and people don't remember me from that. So they're not critical. So if you're like a star, then you're judged based on that
yeah.
sort of accessible knowledge of you as a personality as well as being an actor. And so that sometimes gets in the way of what we're trying to do. So I would probably be out auditioning, looking for a young-ish 30, 35-year-old actor who had great theatrical experience and was probably a little scary looking and could handle Stephen's brilliant material.
Yeah,
Which
I,
the
I,
list is short. I'm probably going to just keep coming back to me.
yeah. Well,
I
look,
jest. I jest.
you can't be replaced. You can't. And I'm being serious when I say that. I've been trying to interview you for 3 years.
Oh, really? I'm so sorry. I don't know how. I mean, listen, technical difficulties beyond our control and COVID.
I I
I'm
reached out.
delighted to talk to you now.
I reached out in 2019, and I don't remember your previous management team, and I don't mean to put them on the spot, but I reached out to them, and I was so excited. And like I said, my mom's fiance was excited because we're big fans of the film. And then when they got back to me, they said we're going to pass. And
Well, sometimes they do these things without letting me know. They don't, one is not entirely responsible for one's career. It is in other people's hands. That's one of the difficulties of being an actor. You don't really have any power. But also things slip through cracks, and sometimes people don't see the value, or they don't recognize or don't ask me how interested I am in just chatting. And one of the things that COVID has taught us is if we can't do it in person, this great technology that we have access to allows us not only the time, but the wherewithal to say yes to more of these opportunities. So I'm delighted that finally we get to talk.
yeah, and this is just criminally underrated. The movie is, and so are you. Um, it's just no. It's listen to me. It's a crime. I'm
No,
telling you
but
the
listen,
truth.
no, but here's the thing. Here's the great advantage, Darnell. The work stands on its own, but to have, you know, Stephen King come out as recently as he has, saying, listen, he's particularly around Halloween, because people were re-examining the horror genre and all of Stephen's work, which is the best, which is your favorite. And he said, hands down, Storm of the Century. And people used to get it confused with, do you mean The Perfect Storm? No, that's George Clooney. That's a different thing altogether. And, you're right. It deserved more attention at the time, and it deserves now a kind of legacy attention, because Stephen has had the good, grace to say, let me shine a small light on this. You might enjoy it. And I
Yeah.
think it stands up. So there's a lot of fun in being discovered and rediscovered as a kind of, hidden gem that lain there in plain sight for as long as it's existed. And now people like you getting the word out is enormously gratifying.
I think you're a hidden gem.
Well, thank you. I'm trying to keep working, and so hidden works for me. I keep turning up as different people, and if I'm lucky and successful, it's because you can't pin me down particularly.
Yeah.
The show I'm doing now for Netflix, I've had people on the street say to me, "Oh, have you seen this show? It's really good." And I'd say, well, I'm in it. Oh, really? What do
What
you play? What do you
What's the
play?
name of the show?
It's a thing called the Umbrella Academy, and
Okay.
it's very wild and weird, and superhero children doing all kinds of crazy things. But I just play dad, but I'm disguised. I don't look like me exactly, and so that allows me to go out, to the grocery store, and get on with my life, and then come back and work and do things
Has,
like this.
has anybody ever approached you about being André Linoge and said, "Hey, you're that evil guy"? Has that ever
Yeah,
happened?
actually, yes, that has. Well, because I don't know why. It must have been that the outfit suited me. But since then, I have worn watch caps, um, because I'm bald and my head gets cold, and
Yeah.
so I'm fond of them. But it means that I often wear a black coat, black thing, and I got this watch cap on, and I've had people freak out in grocery store lineups and stuff. And the moment if somebody does that, the first thing I do is just say, "Give me what I want, and I'll go away." And
Wow.
that freaks him out.
Yeah.
Born in sin, come on in.
I was gonna ask you. I wanted you to say that for me one time. I
Born in
wanted.
sin, come on in. Yeah,
I
and I
I
do that.
love it. I
And
love
suddenly I've had, because it's in a bit of an event show, people tend to sit around, as you have done, obviously, in family groups and watch it together. So I'll have generations of people. The mom will show the daughter will show her friends, grandma will come, and so there will be kind of a collective freaking out if I bump into a group of these people who are like, oh Christ, we were watching you last night. Oh my God. And then it'll be snowing here where I live, and I look spooky. I'm wearing a watch cap. I'm in the thing, and I just appear out of nowhere. Yeah, it could be kind of freaky.
Colm Feore. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, Donnell. Thank you so much for your patience and persistence. I'm glad we finally got to talk.
Thank you so much, sir.
Take care. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, you too. Thank
Cheers,
you
man.
again.
Ciao. Bye.
Bye.